Welcome to Women Business Voices of Central Florida. I'm your host, Ariel Faith. Your voice matters here. Women of Central Florida building businesses with heart. Your voice, your story, your truth. Every lesson learned through service, every struggle that shaped you. Your voice deserves to be heard. This is where voices rise. Welcome to Women Business Voices of Central Florida. This week, we are welcoming Pearl Chiarenza, and I actually pronounced her name relatively okay. She is an incredible woman that I recently met. She's the founder of Women's Successful Living of Central Florida in the Tampa area. After years of being the strong one who carried everything for everyone else, and many of us know that feeling, Pearl found herself exhausted and disconnected, and we also know that feeling. The loss of her son made painfully clear that existing is not the same as living. And this resonates with me a great deal, and how Pearl helps women release people-pleasing guilt and set boundaries without apology, guiding them from burnout to balance. So welcome, Pearl. We are really glad to have you with us.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here, Ariel. I love what you're doing as well. And you did my name perfectly. So way to go.
I have kind of a reputation in the podcast world of murdering names, so I try not to even do the last names. And I'm really working on it. That's the sad part. It's just for whatever reason, I'll say it fine in practice, and then I'll murder it when I get on camera, but that's okay.
It's all good.
It is all good. You know, imperfectly perfect is the way they
Oh,
say
I love
it.
that. Yes.
Okay? Okay, so one of the things is in the application you had mentioned to me was that you said when you started your family, you became everything for everybody without realizing it. And I think many of us do that. So, what is, if you wouldn't mind sharing the story behind when you recognized that that armor that you had been wearing and carrying was really weighing you down from actually living? Could you share that
Yeah.
journey with us?
Yeah. So Chuck and I met. We tried for 10 years to have a family and it just wasn't working. We tried in vitro. We did around with adoption through, a company, a Catholic, our Catholic faith, basically. It just doesn't work out. And so we told everybody we knew we wanted to have a family and we were looking to adopt. And we got the phone call out of the blue 1 month after my father-in-law passed away that there was this boy, this little boy. And so we sat down and we did a checklist of everybody because Matthew was mixed race. And so we wanted to make sure that Matthew would be a safe space in our family. And so we did that list and we decided, let's move forward. So we adopted Matthew. And then 2.5 years later, we had in vitro and we had our son Nate. And so in that journey, we were still living in Virginia. And my husband came home one day and he's like, hey, we have the opportunity to go to Florida and you can be, you can stay home if you want, work part time. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. Because in my mind, I was like, okay, God gave me 10 years of trying, and now He's given me these two amazing boys, and I've got an amazing husband. Let me step into that role, that title, that armor. I was like, let's go. So I came down and it was great. I mean, I was PTA volunteer. I was doing things at work. I was working a little part-time job. In fact, my old job, I was doing some work for them too, virtually long before we had this virtual world we're in today. And so I was living this life of, of all the titles, all the armors. And I started becoming unhealthy and I needed to lose weight. So I'd gone to this clinic and I became a coach with the clinic because of my success. And in doing that, I would have people come to me and be like, "Hey, Pearl, can you talk to some of my friends because you have a totally different mindset than what most people want. Like, I want to know why did you choose the cupcake versus oh, you shouldn't have chosen the cupcake. And so I was having a lot of free tea dates with people. And I was like, all right, God, what are you asking me to do? And so it came in my heart to become a life coach. So I wanted to do it the right way. I wanted to get certified, take some classes before I stepped into that world. And so one of the classes I took was called Identity and Destiny. It was a 6 week course. I met some amazing women there. Her name was Shannon. And at the end of 6 weeks, we had to give our I am statement. Now, this happened when my oldest was a rising senior in high school. So this was 12 years of wearing armor and being everything for everybody else that Pearl just was kind of on a shelf. So at the end of 6 weeks, I had to give my I am statement. I still was saying I was a mom, wife, all the titles. Shannon sat across from me. She's like, "Where the heck are you?" Because I still have everything. And by the way, don't you have another son? Because I was so worried about everything from Matthew, because Matthew was struggling. Matthew was a good student, but he wanted to go to college to play football. I want him to have all those things that, as moms, we want our kids to have. Nate was such an introvert, but he was also so smart. He could build computers. He was independent. So he was a lot like I was growing up. So I felt, oh, he's doing good. So in that journey and leaving that class, I was like, Shannon's right. Where the heck am I? Because I hated my name growing up. I did not, I was called, my maiden name was Nap. So I was called Pearl Harbor, Pearl Billy. I was short, mini Pearl, everything. Pearl, go take a nap. And so I was like, I got to figure this out. So I happened to go into a network room one day and I saw this rock on the ground. I picked it up, stuck it in my pocket, didn't think nothing about it. And somebody asked me if I could help them do a fundraiser for animals. And my hand hit my side pocket. I was like, no, I can't do that. That's all I said, just like that. And they looked at me and I thought, oh, I didn't get struck by lightning. They're still talking to me. So I
I said
felt, okay,
no.
this is not too bad. So when I walked out of there, I realized in that whole 6 weeks of identity and destiny, I didn't realize how much of a people pleaser I was. And so because of that, I even wanted to people please God. He gave me these kids. I need to do what he would expect me to do with these kids. Not truly what the journey was he set out. I kind of diverted off the journey that he had. He didn't want me to not be Pearl. He wanted me to also be a mom, but he wanted me to do both. And you can do both. You just have to have that, figure out how to do it. And so that's when I went on a journey. I went home to Matthew and I was like, hey, I know you're going off to school. This is the gift that God's giving you. I started to, and still working on my relationship with Nate. Matt struggled. And so, it wasn't perfect for him, but I had to let them figure that out on their own. So at that point, that's when I started doing things for myself. I literally came home after that meeting and I told my husband and my boys, listen, I'm going to start going in my room or somewhere's in the house, taking time for me. It doesn't mean I don't care or love you guys, but I got to do some stuff for me first before I can be engaging in what we're doing for the evening. So unless the house is on fire, don't come get me. Your dad can bring you to the hospital. He'll call me on the way. So that's sort of my story on how I was,
I love
this
that.
journey that I went on. So yeah, so that's people pleasing sucks. It wears you down, and all the armors you wear, you forget who you are. And there's for those that are listening, there is no that what they say about overflowing your cup is not a cliche. It's 100% true. Do not give unless you have the overflow.
Absolutely. You use the word armor, and I just want to, for the audience, clarify this a little, because when I hear that word, I think of one thing, and I'm hearing you using it in kind of a different way. So for you, when you say you took off your armor, is that the many titles that you
Yeah.
had
Yep.
that you kind of
So
did you wear it as a protection? Just out of
I think
curiosity?
what we do is we put it on to show up. Hey, I'm going to put the cape on for PTA volunteer. I'm going to put the
Okay.
cape on to be the mom. Like I'm putting on that armor. I'm going to go to war and be the best I can be at that event right now, or that thing, or that person I need to be. But we can't be the best at any of that if we're not the best at wearing our own personal armor, our own personal cape. We can't be the best without understanding that no is as much as a complete sentence as the word yes to it is. And you can say it like you just won a freaking $1 million.
Yes. And
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
There's no, yeah. When you say yes, it is a yes. And when da da da, it's just, yes, I'll help you. No, I can't do that. And the cool thing for me in learning to say no, like that rock became a catalyst for my journey where I am today for my coaching programs, because I made a commitment to move that rock 3 times a day by saying no to something. At the end of the day, if I hadn't done that, I had to call, text, or email somebody to say no. Just like I can't do that thing. And so what ended up happening is I became a connector, because you might ask me, Ariel, to do something for you. And I don't want to do it because it's not the right energy. I can't show up. If I say yes and I don't want to, I'm not going to show up as you think I should. That is who you think I
Exactly.
am. And so what was happening is I would go, oh my gosh, Ariel, I know Mary Jane. She can help you that so much better than I can. She's got da 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 da. So I became this connector. And guess what? My people pleaser was like, oh, you still kind of said yes, but you're really saying no.
It's just more politely.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was in a just the power of how difficult this is for some of us. Long story short, I grew up in an abusive situation, typical alcoholic situation and dysfunction of that era,
Right.
right? And in that process, I learned that no was not an option,
Mm.
right? So in my teenage, early 20s, I developed or had severe eating disorders. So I was in a treatment center. And one of the exercises that they put me through at that center, which was it awoke that the ability to say no and the fact that I could not say no. It woke that up in my consciousness because they put me in a situation that I could have gotten out of. It wasn't really a big deal. And I was literally tasked with saying no to everyone for like 3 days. And that was incredibly hard just because it's not my nature. My
Right.
nature is kind and loving, right? So it's not my nature to be no, no, no. So I had to swing from being really passive aggressive, right? And then to learn how to be assertive, which is to me what it is.
Right.
You're in that assertive state.
Right.
You can say yes and no and politely. It's not
Yeah.
the aggressive where you're being harsh
Yeah.
so it's like learning how to be in between that and kind of keep that balance nice and tight instead of swinging from one end to the other, which is kind of what I did in the beginning. So it takes a while to get
I'm
that
I'm
balance,
glad
but
I'm glad you learned that, and especially because with that journey, I know somebody who's had the same eating disorder, and she shared that was the word no is just like it's and people need to understand that when you say yes so many times, like my people pleasing started in third grade because my dad, he had to work and my mom had gallbladder surgery, so had to stay home and take care of my mother. So
exactly.
I became this nurturer and everything. It's no fault in their own. They only knew what they knew. But when we finally understand that for our own well being, I was interviewing somebody this morning, we should call it, heart center, being that heart center, like tapping into what you want, then you can, it's so true. You show up for who you want to because you're not going to give the energy. Like, or if I came in here today and I was like, oh my God, I got 10 things to do, I would not be focused, right? And it's not fair to you and your audience. So being intentional with what you say yes to. And here's the thing, if you said yes, and I've had to do this, I've said yes to something before and be like, oh, I can't do that. I just can't do that. Like this morning, I said yes to something and I'm really disappointed because I have a family emergency. So I have to now say no. And for me, like that was just like so heavy on my heart because I want to be there, but things will happen and we have to understand that it's okay to still go back and be like, and I told my friend, I'm like, I so want to be there because I believe in what she's doing. And I have to go take care of this thing. And so she was very understanding. But the point is if you're said yes and for some reason it changes your energy outside of something that's a family emergency, it's okay to say, hey, Ariel, I just can't do this. I really want to show up and it's not fair to you if I don't show up 100%.
And I really like the expression bandwidth. I know it's probably overused today, but like everything, there's an illustration in that expression that's pretty strong. When you're on the internet and you don't have enough speed, enough stuff coming in, enough bandwidth, you're going to get shaky video. You're going to get
Yeah.
not a smooth recording, etc. So when you're doing that in life, when you don't have enough to give out in all those directions and you make yourself do it, it will be glitchy.
Yeah.
Won't be complete. You won't feel like you did a good job. So then there's failure and all those other things. So it's okay to not have enough bandwidth because all
Yeah.
of us have energy. We have to feed that energy. And if we don't, if we just keep giving it away, then we end up empty. And there's nothing worse than sitting there as an empty cup. And while
Yeah.
people are still demanding,
Yep.
give me. And you're like, got nothing to give. That's a really hard place to be.
I totally agree with you for
So
there.
I love how you serve women. So tell us about the women you serve. What does the moment look like when they first realize something needs to change? When they get that aha moment? How does that feel like
I,
as the helper?
I think I think the person that comes to me, what happens is that woman that comes to me, they are so overwhelmed They're not sleeping at night. They're waking up going, oh my gosh, I didn't send that email. I didn't do that thing. They're snapping at their kids, right? Or their spouse, or they're at work and they're like stressed out, not getting their work done. And the people are hearing it, not making deadlines. I think they're in that overwhelmed stage, right? So then when they come to me, I let them know that they're okay, that they're safe, that it's that they've done nothing wrong. It's just that life can take over sometimes, and we get into the bushes and we don't see it, and we get those trees become overwhelming, they're overgrown. And so I want them to know it's okay. I've been there. I understand, you know. And so let's take a deep breath. Let's just sit down. You know, we talk about, we work on some mental fitness things. Like I believe in the positive intelligence program. So I do PQ with them, which is I teach them like just quick overwhelm. Like I teach them how to rub their fingers together just to kind of calm their mind down. And so that's where we start first. And then I we forget when we get overwhelmed, we forget the things that lit us up, that make us smile, right? We forget, you know, how that joy of just maybe your joy is getting up and sitting in a front porch swing. We forget how that feels because we're not doing it anymore, right?
Listening
And
to the
so
birds, something simple.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the other day
Hmm.
I was walking my dog and a red robin came, and you know my story. Our son did pass away, so I always I look for that now. When I go outside, I look for those little signs because they're all around us. But we get so overwhelmed, we don't see the signs. We don't see the signs of our joy. We don't see the signs of things that overwhelm us. We don't see the signs of the people that need to get off our balcony. And so when they sit down with me, I'm like, let's talk about your joy. Like, what I tell them, like, you're going to give me 10 things they're going to, about what that you brings you joy. And they'll look at me like, oh, I'll give the list right now. I go, nope, it's going to take you 6 weeks to figure out those 10 things that bring you joy. Because here's the thing, I want to know why it brings you joy. Don't tell me just, oh, my cat brings me joy because he sits in my lap. That's great. But what about your cat sitting on your lap? What does that trigger for you that is like, oh, I love my cat sits here because, yeah, he's sitting in your lap, but what does it do inside of you? You know, and so it leads, like one client, it led to the fact that it lets her see that she can be connected to somebody and that she is important. That cat sees her as being something important in her life, right? I had a hairdresser one time. She's like, "Oh, I just love cutting hair. I enjoy cutting hair." I'm like, "That's great. I can walk up the street to my barber. Why should I come sit in your chair? What about me sitting in your chair makes you happy?" And so we got down to it. It was the fact that was, and I don't know about you, Ariel, but I tell my hairdresser everything. So she was like, yeah, when they walk in, like they're stressed out, overwhelmed, and you know, on the inside, they're just like falling apart inside. So they'll just tell me everything that's on their mind. They'll basically brain dump their life to me. So when they leave her, their brain is clear. They look beautiful on the outside and they feel so much better on the inside. And so that's for me, that's where we need to start. And then once we get there, then I sit down with them and we do what the not to do list. We talk about the things not to do. Don't do the negative self talk. Don't let people take up your time that don't deserve your time, right? Learn to say no. Don't give yourself false expectations. If you tell yourself, like, when I started affirmations, I was like, this is baloney. This does not work. Because my coach that I was working with a long time ago was like, stand in front of the mirror, because you know I was trying to bring more money in my bank account. Stand in front of the mirror and tell yourself in the mirror you have all the money in the world you need. I'm like, after 3 weeks, I'm like, I don't have all the money. You want me to believe that? It's not in my bank account right now. So I flipped the switch and I said, what if I just told myself I'm doing everything I can do to bring abundance in my life that will allow me to live the life that I want to live? And it could be money, it could be clients, it could be going on vacation, it could be all those things. I don't know. It's whatever the God's going to bring into my world. And so for me, that's where I start with my clients, because I want them to reconnect to themselves. I want them to say yes to themselves. I want them to understand that they can do it without guilt. I want them to understand they're not a title. You know, the big question I ask them, I'm going to get heavy here for a second, is if tomorrow doesn't come, and only 5 people are allowed to say what they saw. I'm sorry, and only everybody in the room can only say what they saw you do for yourself. How many are going to show up? If you only have 5 people say that, or less than 5, we definitely need to talk, because I don't want to be at your funeral and at your eulogy and be like, oh, Ariel, she was on the phone with me, coaching me all the time, or I saw her doing the PTA stuff. No, I want people to say they saw Pearl sit in a front porch swing, reading, journaling. They saw her go for walks. They saw her take staycations at the beach because I'm in Florida, right? They saw me do things for me, And then I showed up for something that because she was able to do that, she helped me with this, right? Because here's the deal. If tomorrow doesn't come for us, I own my own business. My son is not going to go be my life coach for my clients, so my business is going to close. Your kids and your family, they're going to figure out how to take care of themselves, but they may not do it perfectly, but they're going to figure it out. Your job is going to slide somebody else in that seat, sweetheart, and they're going to have a new employee there before you even get into the ground. So stop giving all your armor to everybody else. Put your armor up, zip it up. And then if you have room in your pocket for other things, then you bring other things into your world.
Yeah, good advice. Walk us through and I like this SHERO method. Just a brief, like, glimpse
Yeah.
of it.
So the SHERO method came from the rock. So as I started doing the saying no to things, found myself becoming stronger in the word no, that I could say it without even thinking about it. If it didn't was in my world, nope. And then that led me to become happier. I wasn't freaking out in the middle of the night. I wasn't waking up. I wasn't stressed out, which led me to become empowered because E stands for empowered. I started writing books. I started stepping on stages and sharing my story. And then radiance was the radiant glow up. Like I walk in the rooms, did you cut your hair, Pearl? Like what's different about you? No, I just learned to say no. And then the last one is original. Growing up, I wanted to be an elementary school teacher. I feel like I'm doing what I was supposed to do when I was younger, and that is instead of teaching them when they were little girls, I'm coaching them now as amazing adults. And so I become my original self. So that's where the SHERO method came from. And we walk you through each stage, including how you communicate your realistic expectations to others because people don't understand when you're doing self-care, and it's not bubble baths and spa days, and it can be on some of those days, but it truly is finding harmony in your life because you're never going to have a balanced scale.
Yeah, and it really is about making sure that you have the oxygen first.
Yes.
If that plane analogy is very good also because we know if it's very logical to say, well, if I don't, then I run out of air, then I can help no one. Well, the
Right.
same is true in life, especially for women. And a lot of us are sitting there gasping for air, but we don't know it. Or we
Yeah.
think that's normal. We think
Yep.
that lack of oxygen is the way we're supposed to function, and it's not. So when you finally get oxygen to your brain because you're allowing yourself to do whatever it is that feeds you, internally, spiritually, emotionally, all those things, then you really do, you have the space, right? You have
Yeah.
the mental capacity to really give to others in a whole new way. So
Whole
when
new
you
way.
give, you're present.
Yeah.
You're not doing all this other stuff in your head while you're trying to do this one thing. So you're actually there listening at that moment and in that moment. And that in itself is really a
I,
beautiful
I
thing to
I
learn.
equate it sometimes. My oldest son played football in high school. So I was the mom that had the camera because he wanted to go play college ball. So you had to get film. So I was the mom with the camera because we don't have these really cool gadgets back then. And my face was always going with the camera. I was watching him. I wasn't present in what's happening in the game. I was just focused on that one thing. That one thing was
Capturing
getting
it
film
for
for him.
future reference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of living
Instead
in
of
it.
being present for the whole game and what was happening. Yeah.
Yeah. As a photographer, when I was doing nature photography mostly, I really learned that an interesting way because I was out there to take photographs and I paid lots of money to get into certain locations to get certain, not necessarily a specific view, but allowing, being in
Right.
the middle of a state park, you can really see all kinds of amazing
Yeah.
to photograph. But the more I focused on the photograph, the less I enjoyed the moment. So I realized at some point I don't need thousands of photographs. I just need a few that really are that are that I was drawn to because that's what
Right.
happens. You get drawn to the shadows in the trees or the light coming through or you get drawn to something that's happening around you and that's what you're trying to the feeling of that is what you're trying to capture. When you're
Yes.
focused on the picture or the video or whatever, you're not there.
You're not.
You're tacting, right? And you miss so much. So even
Yep.
as a photographer, I learned to you hear a lot of times they say slow down. And you do that in life. We really learn to slow down and not rush. And
Yeah.
and you know what? it can wait. Everything that's a crisis for someone is not necessarily, it's not really a crisis. I mean, if you're bleeding, you're dying, or, then we'll move fast, right?
Right. Yeah, 100%.
There are
Yeah.
things that need
Yeah.
quick action,
Right.
but most of our struggles can wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, or even a couple days. We don't have to put that pressure on ourselves. We don't have to wear that
No.
armor.
Yep. There's one thing my husband and I do. So when we have something on our mind and we just talk to each other about it, we've created this space of, are you open to receiving? Right? I've got something on my mind, basically is what it's saying. Are you open to receiving? And then if we're not in the right space, we give each other the option to say, not right now. However, we also make that same commitment. If you use that sentence, you have to be ready in 24 hours. So what happens oftentimes is we both say, "Oh, I kind of figured it out. It's all good," or "Oh, this is what was on my mind, but I feel better about it now." So it's that, like, you don't have to rush to the thing. Give it time, because sometimes it works out.
Yeah, and actually, usually it works better if you don't rush it at the wrong moment, because I'm
Yep.
sure all of us have experienced those escalated arguments, and it really was just about bad timing.
Yep.
The other person was somewhere else, and you force the issue, and then it turns into a much bigger problem rather than
Right.
being a solution-based conversation.
Right.
Hey, I just wanted to pop in real quick and say thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your support. The share buttons, the like buttons, and the leaving comments really does help. I know you've heard that from 1,000 other content producers, but it really does help for our information to get out to more people, especially the share to somebody you know that might need this. You might have somebody who in your life that really does need some support and some help and some assistance, and they want to be part of a bigger community. So please like, share, and please comment, because I love to hear your comments. I read them all. So you're launching your Say Yes to You and your business summit in May, and your 10th annual self-care PJ retreat in September.
Yes.
PJ retreat, I love that. What's been the biggest challenge building these events?
Wow. So it's always making sure the audience understands the messaging behind it. So the retreats, it's all about self-care. So it's come in your best. We have pajamas the entire weekend, or yoga pants. There's no makeup. I did the reason why it became a retreat is I did it as a 2-day event, and we tested the water. It's no makeup is required at the retreats. And so in doing that 2-day event, we had one lady that refused to take off her makeup or not come without makeup. And today I can tell you she's still stuck in the same place she is, because I know her still. And so what we found is, by doing that, when you come in with nothing on and you're not covering up, you're not putting an armor on your face, you automatically start letting yourself go. It's like, I can share, I'm comfortable sharing. The women are so amazing. I have a great team of ambassadors now that help me facilitate the retreat. And I've had women leave that have come to the retreat. I've had women who was my esthetician. She's closed that business and became somebody who makes beautiful soaps. I had my dog groomer. She closed up her business. She actually, if you go online, her name is Jen Bethune. If you go online, Jen is they travel the world now, her and her husband, but her and her husband are part of why Gabby Patina was found. So had she not come to my retreat and closed her business, who knows if that would have happened. My VA, she came 2 years ago, left her corporate world and started her VA business. I'm not a business coach. I'm just a self-care, say, what is your dream that's sitting on a shelf that you're letting everybody else walk over you? And so I just open the gateway for you, and then I guide you through it. So that's what the retreat's about. The Say Yes to Your Business and Yourself Summit, that came because so many women were like, I can't get away. They still couldn't buy into, I can get away from everything for 4 days and take care of myself. So we listened to the audience. And so we're doing a 1-day summit. We did a mini of it last year before last year's retreat. It was a great success. So we're doing it separately on May 14th here in Tampa Bay area. It's a come in your best dressed PJs that represent your business. So we're giving a prize for the best dressed PJ. So for instance, a finance planner, she's wearing PJs that got money on it, right? And makeup is optional. The girls all know I'll show up with no makeup because that's all about who I am. I want you to be your authentic self. However, I'll give you a sneak peek. There will be something around makeup during the day. So just going to buy into it. It's about being open to receiving the things that can change your life. And so the Say Yes to You Summit is bridging business and self care. So, for instance, we have three coaches on one panel that cover self stuff like autoimmune coach, menopause coach, a coach who's a health coach, right? So, those are all your health things that can cause brain fog, things that hold you back from doing the things you want to do either in your business or your professional life. And then at the end of that panel is my financial planner. Why is she on there? Because if you get your finances straight, if you have these things happen on the other three, you can take time off from your work, your business, or whatever, and be financially set. And
Yes.
and Natalie, who's a financial person, she's going through caregiving right now, and she said, had I not been financially set, I couldn't take time off to take care of her mom. Another panel, we have social media, branding, a virtual assistant, we have a PR person. At the end of that panel is a travel agent. Why? If you get all those four things together, you can go travel. So we're trying to show you how you can have harmony in your life and do things you want to do without guilt because you put the right things in place. So we still have vending tables open. We still have seats available. They can go to sayyesToYouSummit.com and get tickets. We have sponsorships open. I'm very, very intentional with the women who are in the room. So all of our vendors will not have any competition. So there won't be more than one skincare provider person, that kind of thing.
Okay, so just repeat that for the audience. I'll put it in the show notes, but
Yep.
you have vendor opportunities in the
We have
Tampa area. You also have sponsorship opportunities
Yep. So we have vendor
available.
opportunities. We have sponsorships in the room. Also, part of your ticket cost is going to two different nonprofits. One's called the Mary Martha House here in Florida. They support women between domestic violence that are in homelessness or in their shelter. Another one is for Unsilenced Voices, which is for a nonprofit in Sierra Leone, Africa, that helps take the girls out of the brothels, teach them a trade, and get them education. So $20 of your ticket's going to go between those two. So yeah, and some of those women from the Mary Martha House are actually going to be in the room with us because we want them to be connected to find jobs. So some of them will be able to make those connections too.
Yeah, that's really incredible, actually.
Thank
Um,
you.
this is in May. Have you sold out yet?
No, we are about almost halfway sold out. We still have about 45 more tickets. Right now, if you buy your ticket by till the end of February, you automatically get upgraded to VIP. So VIP is going to give you the before party, which is a brunch and special training, and the after party, which is our silent disco party afterwards to release everything you've gotten in your head and just be like, let's go have some fun. So right now the tickets are 147, but you get $47 off. So if you do VIP, you're saving $100.
Okay. What do you think the biggest impact? Before I go there, I have to go back to the no makeup thing, just because as a woman who wore makeup from the time she was 12 and would not step outside the universe without it on till she was probably 42, not even thinking about going outside without makeup at that point in life. And there was a very big aha moment as to why I had such resistance. I would have been that woman who refused to come without makeup. Now I would still not be okay, but I would do it just to kind of push myself because that's the way I roll at this point in life. But I just find that whole thing very interesting. And from my perspective, the reason I want to share that is for the audience is because the makeup wasn't about makeup. For me, it gets into a much deeper, kind of uglier thing. But when I didn't have makeup on, I looked a lot more like my abuser.
Mm,
So I didn't like myself without makeup on because I
right,
saw someone else, not myself. So it's
right.
interesting that sometimes we have these resistances through life that we don't identify through our just fitting. Okay, I'm going to wear it. I'm just going to keep doing it instead of fighting that. You're allowing women in a safe place to test this.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
I have to share a story about that. So Jen Bethune, she was my dog groomer, and she also, this is long before I lost my son. She had lost her son. I think Ethan was 5 or 6 years old on the way to Disney. They had a horrible accident. So when I wanted her to come speak at the events, I explained to her that even all the speakers have to stay for the weekend and they have to, so they're invested in the weekend, they're paying, they get a discount. They also have to wear no makeup, even when they're speaking. We'll give you some video, but even when you're speaking. So two things happened. First, Jen, she came and she said, well, Pearlie, I can't speak at your event. I said, explain to me why. What she explained is the makeup at the time was so that she could motivate herself to get out the door. She was covering up her grief, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, Jen, come, wear your makeup all weekend. I don't care. That's your story. And that's the story I want you to touch on when you speak. She arrived. She saw all the women with no makeup on. She did not speak with makeup on. She wore makeup, no makeup the entire weekend. And that's the weekend she went home and said, I'm going to start making changes in her life. And then they closed up their business and traveling on the road in a Bluebird bus with 4 kids and 5 dogs, something like that. So that's one story. The other story is I had a speaker who understood the rules. And that morning of her to speak, she came out with makeup on and full clothing and not her PJs. And I sat there and I had to thank God I have other coaches and ambassadors. I'm like, okay, what do I do? Because I set the space for everybody. And so I basically decided, since everybody in the room already knew what the rules were, I didn't need to call her out. However, I didn't give her the extra time that I usually would give them for questions and things. When it was done, I was like, thank you very much, appreciate you. And I just let her be because she knew what she did wrong and I don't need to call out. But I will tell you, because she did that, her reviews, because we always do surveys, her survey was not as polite as it could have been. And her message was great, but because she didn't do the rules, I think people were like, oh, you didn't buy into what we're all sitting here as 90% of people who come to my retreats are business owners. So they're all sitting there as business owners and are speakers, and you're doing exactly what they just, the opposite of what they just did. So yeah, it just became a thing. And I had funny story. You talk about your abuser. So I'm 61 years young. I look in the mirror and I see my mom and dad. I've had a tough growing up too. But I look at the mirror. My mom's 20 years older than me. And every time I look at the mirror, I'm like, man. And people will say, Pro, you look great for 60. I'm like, thank you. Because I look in the mirror and I think, man, my mom looks rough. Her life showed on her face at 61. So yeah, it's like makeup can be your thing if it needs to. There's nothing wrong with it, but don't let it define you. And that's why we do, for the summit, my girls are like, you can't say no makeup. People might not come. I'm like, okay, we'll just put makeup as optional. But they know me, so they know I'm going to have some fun around it. So, so we'll have a good time, create a safe space for everybody.
And it's an interesting thing because our culture has given us, there's a lot of lessons just in that, the fact that we have to even put makeup on. Men don't
Yeah,
wake up and put makeup on. They don't have to improve themselves every day. And yes, okay, makeup can help enhance, blah, blah, blah. I'm a photographer, so I know the value of light and shadow, which is basically all makeup does.
right.
De-emphasize and emphasize. That's all it does. And in that, when you work with professional models and they show up without makeup, because they do in the beginning, they look like all of us. These women that we would
They
just say, oh
do.
my God, I'm not photogenic. I can never take a photo. It's amazing to me how these women will walk in and I'm looking at them and I'm not, there's no judgment. I'm just saying, okay, this is going to be interesting. And then when
Yeah,
they do their makeup and they get in that space and you get the right lighting, I mean,
right,
they're absolute models. And
right,
there's a lesson in that. And that's that all of us need to look at each other like that.
right. Yeah,
There is
100%.
no, you know, photogenic or non-photogenic. It really is all about light and shadow.
Yeah, it really is. And it's more our stuff than anything. I remember my mom would come out to visit me and her like when she comes out to see me, I would take her to get her hair done. And she'd be like, oh, your brother's coming over to touch up my roots. I'm like, why, mom? Well, I'm getting in the airplane. I go, who cares? You're probably not going to see any, you probably won't know anybody in the plane. They're never going to see you. And I'm like, Ma, do you know that sometimes when I travel, if I leave a 5 a.m. in the morning flight, I go no makeup in my PJs. I put a clean pair of PJs on in the morning. I get on the plane because I'm going to go to sleep on the plane. I'm like, so do you think I care about the person next to me, what they think about me? No, as long as I'm clean, I don't smell, and I brush my teeth. Who cares? I'm like, they're never going to see me again. She's like, but you're out in the public. I go, and if they see me, they recognize me. Guess what? I'm being who I said I am on TV.
Exactly. So, what's one lesson that you've learned as a woman business owner that other Central Florida women need to know? And as kind of a wrap up, as a voice of Central Florida and as a businesswoman, what is a message that you really would like them to take home with them through this episode?
This is a really good question for me because it's very raw recently. There's something that happened to me. What I would say, first of all, is whether you're starting out, you're not sure what to do, make sure you have a good CRM system in place. I wish my first coach I had would have told me to do that because now I'm building funnels. Now I'm building all these things that need to be there to touch the world. So make sure you have those things in place. And if you don't, find somebody that can help you do it. I've got a great system now that we're moved everything to, and it's saving me almost $1,000 a month by moving to the system. So I wish somebody would have told me about that. The big lesson I would say, if I wasn't here today and tomorrow you asked me this question, I would want to leave you with this. Make sure you ask the questions in networking. So make sure that you ask before you join a network group, if they say that they are, they're soul aligned, they don't compete, and they support one another, ask them how they do that and follow for a little bit, because last year I made a commitment to myself to really start stepping back in and stepping into, I wanted to pick one network group that I could dabble my toes in. After my son lost, I was navigating my joy and grief. And last year was really my first year I was committed to walking both together. I joined a network group that I really believed it was uplifting, inspiring, and they didn't compete, is what they said. And my retreat last year, somebody in that group came and they basically left my retreat, copied everything I did, copied something else I did. And listen, you want to copy me, you think that's great. It is a compliment, but when you copy me word for word, agenda to agenda, that's not uplifting, inspiring, and you are competing against me. So I felt like I lost 8 months into this group. So before you commit to being in, just visit, dabble, and research and ask questions,
Yeah.
because I really regret that, and I wish I had not given all that time. And the sad part is the person that did it was the leader of this group, and they didn't see it. They didn't see it
Yeah.
themselves.
I actually had a very similar experience, and it was funny because it wasn't funny, but I had a gut feeling the first few
Yes.
times I was there. There was something that I couldn't explain. That gut feeling was telling me something, and I put time, energy, and into this one particular networking group. And the people there were, I mean, the people were great, but
Yeah.
for there was a competition that was happening, even though it was a safe space and we don't compete. And there's plenty
Right.
of clients, and it was like undercutting. You
Yeah.
put an event on, and they put one out right before
Right
yours,
before
or
yours. Yep.
and you're like, really?
Yeah.
This is what am I in kindergarten? So I don't want to
Right.
be in that world, right? So I
Mm-mm.
should have trusted my gut,
Me too.
which I learned to
Yep.
listen to a whole lot more.
Yeah.
There's that intuition is really smart, especially if
Yeah.
we are people who grew up with abuse or any kind of trauma of any, we tend to see it coming
Right.
because we're
Right.
unfortunately we're prone to look
Yeah.
for it. So
Yep.
if we get that feeling, it's probably real.
It's real. Yeah. 100%. Go with your gut. And the only other thing I would back say, one other thing too, is know your worth and don't let anybody else knock you down, because whatever you're charging, whatever you decide to charge, I know what my retreat's worth. And so I had somebody say, well, you need to knock it down. No, my retreat's about transformation and about making a change. If you want to do that in your life, my retreat's for you. If you just want to hang out and have fun with a bunch of girlfriends, then my retreat's not for you.
And I know how much work it takes to facilitate a retreat.
Yeah.
to set up a retreat. I mean,
Yeah.
there's an incredible amount of back end work
Right.
on retreats, and they're not, I like to do business retreats because then they become a tax write-off. So there's the woman that doesn't feel like she can take care of herself says, well, at least I can write this off for my business. But when you're doing
Yeah.
both combined, there is such an amazing amount of work that's done on a retreat that can't be done in any other situation. And I'll just talk about that a little bit with you, just because I have one coming up and you have one coming up. But the value of taking women and putting them in a room, and then there's no kids, there's no family responsibilities. You're taken out of your other environment. You're put in an encouraging and an energy filled room, and sometimes very emotion filled room. So we're allowed to be what we are. If we're sad, it's okay to be sad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those things happen sometimes when we're doing this work, but it's safe to do it there. It's not like, oh, well, I can't be sad because I got to go pick up my kid from school. All of those things that we have in daily life. So that gives you that space to really dig in and make some major transformation. I mean,
Yeah.
just that alone, and when you're working with other women in particular, there's something so powerful of group dynamics that even to me, one-on-one is not the same as group dynamics.
Yeah. I agree.
There's just something powerful about the group dynamic. You have to be
Yeah.
careful. I mean, if you get one bad apple in the room, you got to really know how to
Oh,
work with that one.
we've had that happen. That's why I have great ambassadors now. My one ambassador, I'm going to call her out, Trish. She's my sergeant of arms. So if you have a challenge, you have to go to her before you come to me. And then if Trish thinks it needs to be addressed, then she'll go to Carol first, who's my disc profile person. And so Carol and Trish kind of cohort that together. And then if I have to get involved, then they come to me. Because if I have to step out to a challenge, then my energy is lost. Right. And something that you said about leaving family and everything behind, we actually we do a really cool thing. I don't want to say because it gives a secret away, but we do a cool thing that your family shows up in some way, somehow at our retreat.
Yeah, because they're with you. We
Yeah.
just don't have to take care of them.
Right. Exactly. I love doing it. Yeah. It's so much
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your voice with us in Central Florida. It is a pleasure and an honor to meet you in person and
Same here.
to get a chance to get to know you. And I will put the information about your upcoming events in the show notes.
Awesome.
And we will see if we can get you filled. How's that sound?
That sounds awesome. I'm really, really excited. We have a keynote speaker coming from Utah and somebody from Orlando area. So we're definitely reaching out to more women, and that's what we want in the room.
Nice. Awesome. All right.
Thank you for listening to Women Business Voices of Central Florida. Your voice matters. Keep sharing, keep building, and keep rising. Women Business Voices of Central Florida. Please like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.
It's our time to rise. Voices of Central Florida, shining bright. We are done staying quiet in the corner. We were made to be seen, to be heard. Every woman, every story. We got hearts that refuse to fold. Every handshake, every hard day turns experience into gold. We lift up one another, watch the whole room start to turn. Every small win lights a pathway. Every failure just helps us learn. Hands up for the ones still doubting. You belong right where deals are made. Stand tall when the room feels crowded. You're the reason that the ground will shake. Say your name like an anthem. Say your dream like a vow. We're the future in the making. And the future is now. This is our time to rise.